So let's get right into it. On October 14th, something absolutely wild happened in Cameroon. You have this guy, Issa Tchiroma Bakary. Now, he's not just some outsider. This is a man who was deep inside the government for over a decade. He was Paul Biya's communications minister, the government's main spokesman, and he gets in front of a camera and just declares himself the winner of the presidential election, just like that. Within hours, what does the government do? They threaten him with high treason. Look, this isn't just another disputed election in Africa. This is about a 92-year-old president, the oldest head of state in the world, who is now facing the biggest threat to his 43-year rule. Paul Biya, who has been running Cameroon since 1982, hasn't said a single word. His government is putting out warnings, saying only the Constitutional Council can announce results. But Tchiroma, he's not backing down. He's saying he's going to release the numbers, region by region, based on results that ordinary people snapped with their phones at polling stations and put up on social media. And the stakes here, they couldn't be higher, because over 60% of Cameroon's 30 million people are under the age of 25. The median age is just 18. Think about that. Most of the country has never known another president. And while the official youth unemployment is around 6%, the reality is much tougher for millions of young people. Nearly a quarter of them aren't in school. They don't have a job. They are not in any kind of training. Inflation is crushing families, and you still have this brutal 8-year war going on in the Anglophone regions that has already killed at least 6,000 people and forced almost 1 million people from their homes. And now, the same man who used to defend this government is claiming he beat them at their own game. So what happens when a president's own mouthpiece turns around and says, "I won," before the government even have a chance to speak? Late Monday night, October 14th, a video drops on Facebook. It's almost 5 minutes long. It's Issa Tchiroma Bakary speaking from his own town up in the north. He's standing in front of the Cameroonian flag and he just lays it out there. "Our victory is clear," he says. "It must be respected. The people have chosen, and this choice must be honored." He didn't wait for the Constitutional Council, which legally has until October 27th to give the final results. Instead, he started thanking voters for resisting intimidation and for staying late at the polls to guard their votes. He's even thanking other candidates who he says have already called to congratulate him. And then he drops a warning. He says the regime can either demonstrate greatness by accepting the truth of the ballot box or choose to plunge the nation into chaos. The government reaction came within hours, not with arrest, but with threats. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Biya, had already been saying that anyone releasing their own results will be committing high treason. The ruling party called Tchiroma's claim a grotesque deception, just repeating that only the Constitutional Council can announce a winner. But back in Garoua, no police showed up at Tchiroma's place. Instead, local reports say young men on motorbikes, armed with clubs, started showing up outside his villa to protect him. Posts started flying around social media, with his supporters basically saying, "We are ready to defend our guy." Is this the start of something real, or just a dangerous showdown waiting to explode? The silence from Biya's palace in Yaoundé is deafening, and all across Cameroon, millions of people are just watching and waiting. So, how does a leader who hasn't really campaigned in person for years still keep a grip on a country where 60% of the people are younger than 25? You have to understand, Paul Biya isn't just the president, he is the system. For 43 years, he has built this entire structure of institutional control that looks like a democracy on the surface. At 92, he's the world's oldest sitting head of state. He has been in power longer than anyone in Africa, except for Teodoro Obiang in Equatorial Guinea. For most Cameroonians, he is all they've ever known. But that machine, the one that's kept him in power for decades, is starting to show some serious cracks. Biya is rarely even seen in public. He spends huge chunks of time in Switzerland, mostly in Geneva, letting his officials and family run the day-to-day stuff. In 2024, he was gone for so long that rumors started spreading that he died. It got so bad the government had to ban the media from even talking about his health and set up teams just to track what people were saying online. When he finally showed up in early October to vote, it was basically his first campaign appearance since he announced he was running on social media back in July. And the institutions that are supposed to be independent, they are facing a massive credibility problem. The election body, ELECAM, is supposed to be neutral, but all of its members are appointed by President Biya himself. The Constitutional Council, the body that is supposed to validate the result, is seen as just another tool of the presidency. Just back in August, that same council blocked Maurice Kamto, who was Biya's biggest challenger in 2018, from even running. Human Rights Watch basically said it was proof the government won't tolerate any real opposition. Biya's old trick of divide and rule is also under pressure, because back in March, the government banned 2 opposition coalitions, which probably just fired up their supporters more than anything. And now this. The ultimate insider, Issa Tchiroma, a man who defended this very regime, has turned against the system he has helped build. Is this it? Is this Biya system finally facing a retest? The answer isn't in the palace, it's in the street and on the smartphones of millions of people who are recording everything. So, why are everyday Cameroonians risking arrest just to post photos of black bots with vote counts on them? Here's the thing. Cameroon's election law says results can be posted right there at each polling station, but only the Constitutional Council can give the final official tally. And that gap, that's where this whole digital revolution is happening. People are showing up with their smartphones. They are taking pictures of the tally sheets, the handwritten results on blackboards, and within hours, those images are everywhere. Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, TikTok, Twitter. The strategy is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. Tchiroma's team told their supporters, after you vote, don't leave. Stay, watch the count, record the results, and share them online immediately. And what that does is create this parallel count, a public record that completely bypasses the state-controlled media. One young activist put it perfectly. What we see on the ground might not be what they announce later. So people took pictures, took videos, and sent them out to let the world see what really happened here. Now, this isn't the first time this has been tried, because back in 2018, Maurice Kamto did the same thing, declared himself the winner based on those kind of polling station results, but the system crushed him. Kamto was arrested, charged with sedition. His rallies were broken up with tear gas and water cannons. Dozens of his supporters were thrown in jail. So what makes 2025 different is the scale and how much more digitally savvy people are. You've got TikTok and Instagram pulling in young people who normally wouldn't care about politics. WhatsApp and Telegram are being used to coordinate in rural areas, even in the conflict zones where the internet is shaky, but mobile networks still work. And Facebook has become the main stage. Issa Tchiroma's victory speech on October 14th was shared all over the country almost instantly. The big question is, can this digital flood of information actually force a result the government can't ignore? Or are we about to see history repeat itself with another crackdown? It all depends on what happens when the official results finally drop. Now, how can you even have a credible election when millions of people are on lockdown and there is a literal war happening in the west of the country? The thing is, Cameroon isn't voting as one united nation. It's a country that is fractured by language, by religion, by region, and by violence. And this election has just thrown all those cracks wide open. In the northwest and southwest regions, the English-speaking part of the country, they've been at war with the government since 2016. It started with protests for more rights and has blown up into a full-scale conflict. Separatist groups who want to create their own country called Ambazonia are fighting government forces. It's been brutal. At least 6,000 civilians are dead. Over 900,000 people have been forced from their homes. Schools have been shut down for years. Internet blackouts are common. And on election day, the separatists enforced a boycott with threats. So voter turnout there, it collapsed. In 2018, it was just 10% in those regions compared to 54% for the whole country. That basically silences about 15% of the electorate and tilts the whole election in favor of the ruling party. People who live there call the election day a day of ballot and bullet. Many are just too scared to even go outside. Then you look at the far north, where there is another threat, Boko Haram. These terrorists coming over from Nigeria have been stepping up attacks, making it dangerous to vote or even live a normal life. But this region is also where Tchiroma's challenge is coming from. His hometown, Garoua, saw people celebrating when the first unofficial numbers started coming in, suggesting he was doing really well in places that are usually loyal to Biya. The northern region makes up almost 20% of the voters, and Tchiroma, along with another opposition candidate, Bello Buba Maigari, both have strong support there. That could be splitting Biya's traditional base. So, we even saw clashes on election day when security forces used tear gas on Tchiroma's supporters in Garoua. It's a clear warning of what could happen if the official results don't match what people see with their own very eyes. So, could this unrest blow up into something bigger? Or will the powerful governors and military commanders keep everyone in line? Right now, behind the scenes, you can bet those regional leaders are trying to figure out which way the wind is blowing. And their decision could be the difference between a peaceful transition and a national crisis. So, who actually gets to decide the winner? Is it the government official council? Or is it the millions of people looking at pictures of black box on Telegram? The Constitutional Council has until October 27th to give the official result. But in the court of public opinion, that verdict is already being fought over. All over social media, you see these images of tally sheets that claim to show Tchiroma doing really well across the country, even in places that are supposed to be government strongholds. His supporters are sharing this unofficial count that suggests the race was much more closer than anyone expected. Now, the African Union and the Economic of Central African States, they had observer missions on the ground, and their first report are what you would expect, very diplomatic. They said the election was mostly peaceful, but they mentioned concerns about voting in the conflict zones and how transparent the counting was. But this carefully worded statement, they don't really solve the fight for legitimacy that's happening online right now. Issa Tchiroma has promised he's going to publish his own detailed region-by-region results based on all those photos from the polling stations. That's a direct challenge to the state authority. If these numbers come out and they totally contradict the official ones, what happens then? When Maurice Kamto tried this in 2018, he ended up in jail. But Tchiroma isn't Kamto. He has got the credibility of an insider, a strong base in the north, and all of this visible grassroots momentum. The regime is in a tough spot. If they arrest Tchiroma, they risk protests exploding in Garoua and across the north. If they ignore him, they look weak and people will trust social media more than them. But if they actually acknowledge his claims, that could be the end of Paul Biya's 43-year rule. Now, the government spokesman called Tchiroma's announcement an unacceptable act. The territorial minister promised that order will be maintained, but honestly, they sound more defensive than confident. What happens next will be decided by two things: that looming deadline of October 27th and whether or not young Cameroonians are willing to fight for the result they believe they saw. So, will this election shock in Cameroon just stay in Cameroon, or could it send shock waves across Central Africa? What's happening in Cameroon isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a much bigger story playing out across the continent, especially in Francophone Africa. It's a story about challenges to these old autocratic leaders and a rising call for real sovereignty. Just think about it. Since 2020, you have had military coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, and Gabon, and now Madagascar. All of them former French colonies. Young military officers took over, and they all said the same things. They were tired of corruption, insecurity, and civilian government that did nothing for young people. You have guys like Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso. He took power when he was only 34 years old. He has become this huge symbol for youth across the diaspora. His government has already kicked out French troops and is trying to take back control of the country's resources. He has formed this new alliance with Mali and Niger to break away from Western influence. Traoré is popular because he's tapping into a regenerational shift. Young people all over the continent are demanding economic independence. They are tired of systems that keep a tiny elite rich while millions are left behind. And social media is amplifying all of this. Cameroon's youth are feeling the exact same frustration because over 60% of them are under 25 and they are inheriting an economy with few real opportunities. They watch their president spend months at a time in luxury hotels in Europe while their own roads are falling apart. Their hospitals have no supplies and schools in the Anglophone regions have been closed for years. If Tchiroma's challenge actually works, it could inspire similar movement all over Central Africa. But if it gets crushed, it might just convince more people that the only way to get change is with a gun, not with a ballot. The regional bodies like AU and ICAS haven't been very effective in this kind of situations. They tend to issue statements, not take decisive action. And you have got the big powers watching. Now, France has huge business interest in Cameroon, oil, mining, so they want stability, which usually means keeping Biya in power. China is growing economic power there too, and the US and EU are more focused on their so-called counter-terrorism than they are on good governance. All of that plays into what happens next. So, is this Cameroon's last shot at a peaceful change? Or is this just going to be another story of hope getting crushed? The next couple of weeks are going to decide everything. We are going to see if Cameroon can have a real democratic transition, or if the Biya system is just going to absorb this challenge like all the others and hold on to power. And this is bigger than just one election. It's about a generational shift. It's about whether these systems built around one man can actually survive. It's about whether technology can really force accountability on governments that don't want it. It's about whether Africa's aging leaders can handle the pressure from a young, connected, and frustrated population. Issa Tchiroma is something new. He's not an outsider that the government can just dismiss. He was part of the system. He knows how it works from the inside. This is a man who used to defend the government's controversial policies, and now he's apologized for it. He's the guy who once restricted what journalists could say, and now he's campaigning on reform. That journey, that public admission of his past, has given him a lot of credibility with voters. It's also what makes him so dangerous to a regime that runs on loyalty and silence. So young Cameroonians have a choice. They can accept another disputed election and just give up. They can go out and protest and risk getting crushed like Camto's movement back in 2018. Or they can keep doing what they are doing, documenting, sharing, and demanding that the world pays attention to what they saw. The divide here is just so stark. Biya is 92, Tchiroma is 76, the median age in Cameroon is 18, and you have over 2.7 million registered voters between 20 and 35 years old. These are digital natives. They organize on platforms the old guards doesn't understand, and they have inherited nothing but trauma from the war, economic pain, and the frustration of watching their future slip away. So, as we wait for the final verdict, what is it going to be? Silence or resistance? The answer isn't going to come from the halls of power in Yaoundé. It's going to come from the streets of Garoua, from the WhatsApp group in Douala, and from the social media networks that are lighting up across the continent. Now, if you have watched to this point, this is Frontline Africa, where we talk about geopolitics from Africa's own point of view, where we bring you the story with the kind of details mainstream media does everything to avoid. This is Cameroon we are talking about right here, and we are talking about election, democracy, and we are talking about Paul Biya. This has been happening for 43 years. The question I want to ask, is this the end of Paul Biya, or Paul Biya just going to walk over it like he has been doing for decades? The answer to this question will depend on Cameroon. It will depend on if they are tired of this same system that has created nothing but poverty and insecurity for the people of Cameroon. And it is the people of Cameroon, and only the people of Cameroon, that can decide that they want change. And if they want change, they will get change. If you want to see more of my videos, maybe consider to subscribe and turn on those notifications. I am your host, Issa Tchiroma Bakary, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.